Hello Sagittarius, and welcome to your in-depth monthly horoscope for July 2023 for the Sun or the Ascendant. I'm going to give you some standout details first of all, but please stay with me. I will explore in much greater depth all the ins and outs, particularly impacting on your sign. Now, Jupiter, of course, is your ruler, and you enter this month with Jupiter in a gorgeous angle to the Sun, but also, ironically, to Saturn too, the planet of limitation, the Sun, obviously, the planet of possibilities, which for you begins this month in the 8th house, very much about very deep changes or transformations that can evolve. Jupiter in your sector of health, organisation, work. Perhaps you're going to create some opportunities with this very buoyant start to the month. But one of the other things that I think is really fabulously exciting for you is that the true North Node reverses into your sister fire sign on the 17th of this month. And with the Sun returning to Leo, your other sister fire sign, on the 23rd, so much to share with you. If you are a returning visitor, thank you so much for joining me once more. If you're new here, it's great to have you with us. I'd be honoured if you would subscribe. Please click or tap on the bell notification symbol. And if you have any thoughts, please do share them. I try to interact with each comment. This is very much a community. If you would like to ascend above this zodiac broadcast, what you can do by grappling with more serious astrology is provide so much knowledge and understanding of life's patterns that can guide you in your future moves. If you give me 3 pieces of your personal birth data of time, date and place of birth, I can produce for you your life roadmap report. This will give you intimate understandings of the opportunities you have, but also some of the more challenging patterns that may have repeated themselves. And so a better knowledge of these can help to guide you forwards more successfully. And in my 30% off package, you can also get your 12-month personal forecast, totally unique to you, both these charts, and will give you searing insights. Please see the link below for more. However, if you don't know your time of birth, my solar package based on the Sun can still give you a considerable extra understanding that goes beyond this zodiac broadcast. So Sagittarius, as you come into this month, your ruler Jupiter very supportive to the Sun, but also to Mercury. In fact, the Sun and Mercury are in a cazimi on the first day. This is a traditional astrology expression for when, as we see it from planet Earth, a planet is aligned with the Sun in a perfect connection, so side by side. So if you do need to work with any issue, whether it's a more spiritual, emotional or practical matter, what Mercury is encouraging you to do is not be so influenced by what people are saying to you, but more around what their true meaning is. So in other words, seeing the subtext. So that's going to be a very helpful component for you, because although Jupiter is a very buoyant influence, in the 6th house, it's also asking you to stay very grounded and very earthy in your approach. I feel that the combination between the Sun and Mercury and Jupiter could bring some fortune around money, but much more to do with where you've worked very hard over a period of time, and it's more like a legacy of that effort and application rather than straight out good fortune. However, there is on the 3rd a full moon, and it's a full moon that sees the moon in the weakest place of its cycle in the sign of Capricorn. But the 2nd house full moon position is very much to do with everyday securities, to do with our everyday money, but also to do with our core values and our self-worth. If you are finding the constraints of all the price increases that we've had in recent months really quite challenging, it's vital that whatever headwinds you're experiencing, you don't see this as somehow a failure on your individual part. Because what this full moon can do is actually give you the wherewithal to actually divine how you might change some of the ins and outgoings in your situation. But it also can speak to you around issues to do with intimacy. Your sign has a deep appreciation of freedom, and because Venus and Mars are in your 9th house as this month begins, that part of you that does appreciate your own space, travel, adventure is really being accented. So if there's part of you that feels you have to fulfill some kind of close obligation, be it in a business situation or a personal one, there's another part of your situation which is pushing you to embrace the side of you that does like to be a free spirit. So I think that does create a little bit of a dichotomy. However, on the 10th, Mars makes its way right to the top of your situation. It's going to be joined by Mercury on the 28th, but not before Mercury moves on the 11th into your sister fire sign of Leo. So that love of travel, if Venus and Mars have been giving you the desire to do it, Mercury can actually see you making the arrangements. But later in the month, it's going to see you much more conscious about your professional situation. So Mars moving into the 10th house and Mercury moving into the 9th on the following day suggests that some of your thinking or actions can be around employment matters, but that may require some kind of travel or travelling to somewhere to have some kind of interview, carry out some training of some kind. If you're wanting to go forwards in terms of an academic opportunity, I feel that from the 11th through to the 28th of this month, you're going to be extremely busy trying to set that up for later in the year. But on the 12th and through to the 20th, but exact on the 14th, the Sun in your 8th house, to do with those transformations and that longer term finance and very close intimacy and where you're most invested, forges a link with Uranus, which, like Jupiter, is in house 6. If anyone can magic up some fresh approaches to their long-term financial planning, it's going to be you at this stage. You really could show some real ingenuity. But also from the 17th through to the 23rd, we have a very long opposition that goes on between the Sun and Pluto. And also from the 15th through to the 26th, Mars, as it inches forwards in your 10th house of success, where it's going to give you a great deal more assertiveness, that's going into an opposition with Saturn. So we've got two of the trickiest oppositions you can possibly imagine in astrology, both come to pass in week 3 of this month. How do you tackle them? Well, I think it's important to understand that also on the 17th, the true North Node inverses back into the sign of Aries. It hasn't been here for 17 years, and over the next year and a half, it's going to bless you with a lot of creativity, but also see a lot of your highest hopes, your wishes actually come into pass. So the next year and a half can be very exciting. But it may be that something to do with balancing your desire for success needs to be offset around some very real restrictions or limitations around your home or emotional situation. Now, one of the ways this can show up for people as they get older is needing to care for the welfare of elderly or older relatives. And this is something that could present itself in your situation. Then again, just as you may want to make a big push for success, you may need to be conscious of the support structures that will help you to achieve that success. So that's where Saturn can ask you to be very seriously minded around your emotional needs, but also how you're going to provide the platform to burst out into the wider world in a way that's actually sustainable. Now, the Sun's opposition to Pluto is much more about money, I feel, or it could potentially be around your sex life. So, for example, say you're in a relationship where you're not feeling very fulfilled. The fact that both Venus and Mercury by this stage of the month are in the most freedom-loving part of your situation, Mars in the most assertive, but Pluto in the second house is reactivating a lot of issues that started to manifest themselves for you in 2008. And if some of these are still outstanding, you may have to look at them again. Of course, the thing with Pluto, it's very much potentially about, in some ways, unpicking something for it to be rebuilt in a more substantive way. It can be like the phoenix. So if your financial situation is quite a lot under pressure, there may be something you need to go through this month that isn't necessarily easy, but it could be some kind of rejigging, reset, and you can go again. But equally, you could encounter someone who finds you magnetically attractive and might find it very difficult to resist you. Now, if you feel the same, everyone's happy. But if you don't, you may have this person who's showing you all this interest, which is very flattering, but it may not be what you want. So some kind of clash around money, desire, or perhaps your values could manifest itself at the heart of this month. But I think on the 23rd, when the sun makes its way into Leo, it returns home, because the sun rules the sign of Leo. And of course, the sun is also the ruler of the third decan of your sign. But also on the same day, Venus does go into a retrograde in Leo through to the 4th of September, 44 days. If you're a natural backpacker and heading off whenever you can to have that freedom and space is something you really appreciate, I think you just may need to be conscious that there could be some downsides with that. But in terms of the philosophy of love, Venus in the 9th house is asking you to get in touch with what's really meaningful. So it's a less outgoing influence, but it's one that can be very profound. So if you're trying to understand the truth of a tie, Venus will help you over the next 44 days. There's also a very fine link between the Sun and Neptune in week 3, and something could come to pass which is to do with a property matter that actually really does give you a lot of uplift. And when Mercury moves on the 28th to join up with Mars, I feel that Mercury brings more detachment. Mercury's a planet that's actually not at its best when it transits through your sign. I actually think Mercury in Sagittarius does have some benefits. I mean, one of the things people would say is that Sagittarians can be very enthusiastic to the point of exaggeration. Whether you feel that's fair or not would be your call. But I feel that Mercury is a very enthusiastic influence in the sign of Sagittarius, whereas in the sign of Virgo, which it governs, is very much to do with precision. So when it comes to your worldly interactions, your ambitions, your goals, any interviews or applications or training, Mercury's a real good asset for you as it moves there. And also, of course, because it's joining up with Mars, you have the thrust, desire and assertiveness of Mars, which is very supportive. So it's quite the month, and that third week of July is one that I think all of us collectively are going to be quite amazed by some of what unfolds on the world stage. But I think for you, if you have been reconfiguring your core values or your finances pretty well non-stop since 2008, there may be a reprise to see how far you've come, and it may be a bit of a test, but you can get beyond this. But I feel it is important to be conscious of your home and security and emotional needs. However much the Sun and Venus in the sign of Leo and Mercury are pushing you to be more outgoing, more adventurous, and Mars and ultimately Mercury are asking you to be more ambitious, do be conscious of how you support that from an emotional and security viewpoint. It's been a real pleasure being with you, Sagittarius. Thank you so much for joining me. Please like, comment or subscribe.